Alright, what's up? So today's going to be a little bit different for a type of vlog. Today I'm going to talk about more on the business side of things. This is for me and I guess for you guys to learn from my experience with advertising in general, depending on your company. So we've finally started taking over our own ads instead of using an agency. We didn't think that we would have enough time because it is quite time consuming, and then we also had in our heads that if somebody's doing this day in day out and they have been for the last 5 years, they're going to be better than you no matter what added. But what we didn't take into account is whenever you use an agency, you're not the number one brand that they're looking after. Each of their digital strategists will have, I don't know how many they use, but let's say 5 brands that they deal with daily or every 7 days or something like that. The other thing is it's hard for other people to replicate your vision of your own brand. So for instance, we were using a company called First Page down in Melbourne, name dropping, because if there's small business owners here, I 100% do not recommend use them. They just were a waste of time and a waste of money. Anyway, the copy is super important when it comes to advertising. If you are a small business owner, you will understand this in general. So your copy is meant to represent your brand, and usually they do like I'll do a bit of a illustration here. They got a top of funnel. Let's get a funnel going. Top of funnel, middle of funnel, and a bottom of funnel. This is what most there's other strategies in these funnels that you can use as well, but that's what they mostly do. And that the way that I can explain it the best is your top of funnel is you're trying to get to a broad audience of whatever product you're trying to push. Medium of funnel is like a hot lead. So the people that you've advertised here have clicked either to your website, onto your Instagram page, given you a phone number, given you an email. So it's a hot lead. So they're actually, your middle funnel is actually interested people who are hot leads, so they will potentially buy from you. Like there's a higher chance of them buying from you than this top of funnel. Top of funnel is still great. You still get purchases, but you wanna try and just introduce your brand. Middle of funnel, you introduce your brand a little bit more. You explain why you're different from other brands, or you give out what your problem is fixing, things like that. And then you got your bottom of funnel. Your bottom funnel is actually meant to be your highest ROAS. Ours is different. Ours is middle of funnel. I think we're catching everybody in the middle of funnel. So for instance, if you're selling clothing, let's just go with clothing because that's what I'm doing. Your top of funnel will be a massive audience. Say you're into your clothing is pushed out to calisthenic type people. So your audience would be calisthenics. It's broad. It's probably like, well, in Australia, for instance, I think it's something along the lines of 1.2 million people in that audience on Facebook and Instagram. This is Facebook and Instagram, by the way, but it works across all sectors of social media and Google. So that's a massive, let's just do calisthenics. That's a massive audience of 1.2 million. In your middle of funnel, you will then have whoever's come from here. Say your audience is social engagers, of people who have watched more than 50% of your video, liked a lot of your content, visited your website, added to cart but didn't purchase. So that really funnels into people who are a hot lead. So this ended up becoming more of a warmer lead, let's just say. This was going to be talking about agencies, but now we're talking about marketing as well, because this is what agencies pretty much do on a more strategic scale of things. Your bottom of funnel is pretty much very, very tiny depending on how big your company is, but they're people who have added to cart and initiated a checkout but did not purchase. So that's the funneling aspect of marketing in general, because you get a cold lead, turn it warm, and then you're trying to sell to the people who were super interested but something stopped them at the end. Whether it's in the bottom of the funnel, normally you put ratings or reviews, sorry, and like a sale or anything like that. And then there's things on there's a whole spectrum of advertising in general to your website journey. But anyway, we're going to talk about agencies. So this is predominantly what most agencies, or if not all agencies, use, and it just makes sense on the bigger scale of things. Broad audience, warm audience, hot lead that has either almost purchased but never purchased, that just needs an extra push and shove. There's more to it than that, but that's the basic aspect of funneling and marketing. Agencies, for instance, are One, super expensive. So the most expensive agency we use, we're doing Google ads, Instagram / or let's just say Facebook ads. Facebook's obviously across Instagram and Facebook. But since we are a clothing label and it's more photo oriented / video oriented in the lower age group of say 18 to 45, they're the people who are on Instagram at the moment. If you were selling on TikTok, you'd be selling it still that age bracket, but the vast majority is a younger generation. So when we were doing when we were using an agency, this was $2,500 per month USD. I live in Australia, so that's like close to $3,000 AUD. Whenever you start a business, it's always easier to work in USD, other than your sales, obviously, if you're in a different country, because China uses USD, agencies USD, like USD is the base rate of everywhere in the world. $2,500 a month USD for Google ads, $2,500 for Facebook ads per month. So before we even start making any money back, that's $5,000 roughly a month before even starting to make any type of money whatsoever. This is using an agency. And then whenever you use an agency, they have a minimum spend, and usually that's about $3,000 to $6,000 depending on their agency fees. They kind of work out what they think they can get a ROAS for you to be able to purchase, for you to be able to pay them back and make a little bit money, or even go even with your sales. They usually have a minimum spend. So with all the ones that we've ever used, it's been $3,000 a month. So that ends up becoming $8,000 per month in spend before you take into shipping or COGS. COGS is cost of goods sold. So that's the price that you purchase it for, ship it to your warehouse, any extra nice things like notes, your time, your employees' wages, packaging. All that stuff was COGS, and usually the way you do it is from your COGS, you want to times it by roughly 4, or depending on how premium your products are or anything like that, you got to obviously include your COGS. So that's $8,000 a month, not including your COGS of the items sold, that you have to be earning back, which means say you're selling a $50 item, $50 divided by 8,000 is, or 50% is 4,000. I think that's about 400 items. I am the smart. I am the smart. I am the smart. 160 items, if they're a $50 item, that you need to sell before you pay back your ad spend and your agency fees. 160 items at a $50 item is what you need to sell monthly before you can start paying that stuff back. And then that's not including, out of that 160 items, say those items are $10 each, that's another $1,600 on COGS, and then say shipping is another, I don't know, $2, whatever it is. Let's just say COGS ends up being like $2,000 on those 160 items. So to make up for it, then you're now spending $8,000. You need to earn another $2,000, so you need to earn $10,000 before you're paying back the $8,000, and then you can start making money from every other sale after that, because then you paid back the COGS that was wasted in this agency fees and ad spend. So this is, for a small scale business, this is really hard to do. When me and Marnie started out for Fortis, we had 280 grand in the bank. Long story short, we went to go buy Airbnb. Thank fuck we didn't, because COVID would have ruined that. We didn't get accepted for a loan, even though we had 280 grand in the bank, and together we were earning over $200,000 a year. Bank wouldn't give us a loan. So then we decided to do Alpha Fortis. But you would, if you've been following for a while or watched my vlogs, you would have seen that in previous vlogs. I'll actually post that one up here that I'm talking about. So we had 280 grand in the bank. I'm actually going to go with all the mistakes I've ever made with business. We've ever made. Predominantly Marnie, because I'm the smart one. Just joking, but true. So this was our initial capital. I'll just go in cap. Out of that, we first started with a company called Slyletica. Again, do not recommend them if you're your own company. What I'm trying to get at with this whole video in general, learn how to do the fucking thing yourself. Because as soon as you know how to do it yourself, you're cutting out all those middlemen that are taking more money from you, which is making you earn less money. And it almost gets to a point when you're doing all this stuff with a middleman at the start, when it's small and you don't have much to sell, makes it not worth it. We're still not in a profit, and we've been running for 3 years now, and we're still using our own personal income to get out the next launches, and we've done about 6 launches now. So out of that $280,000, we ended up spending in the first 3 or 4 launches, I think it was 3 launches with a company called Slyletica, we ended up spending about $140,000. Out of that $140,000 in the first 3 years, we probably made, I can't remember the statistics, actually I'll look it up and I'll put it up here. Slyletica was the company that we used down in Melbourne, which was like a middleman. They helped us design our first release. They had tech packs. Tech packs were shit. They had their own factories. Factories ended up being shit, very, very bad quality. Like one of our singlets ended up shrinking like 100 mil after we got bulk, and then they wouldn't give us a refund. Well, we're gonna sue them and stuff, but then it wasn't worth the $12,000 that they owed us. Anyway, so Slyletica, we ended up spending about 140 grand. I'm gonna average it because this was 3 years ago, so 140K. Now this is the embarrassing part. Over a year, just under a year, after spending 140K, having like 8,000 items, we ended up making, get this, $7,000 back. So that's a net loss of $133,000. Okay? The bit, and this is where burning money becomes in, quite funnily. We got to a point where we were selling items and getting so many refunds, so many returns because stitching was frayed. We just weren't happy with the shirts. We weren't happy with pretty much everything except for the joggers that we have on sale now. Actually, we've sold out of men's. It's just squad joggers for women's. All the quality and everything we were not happy with. We're getting too many returns. So we ended up burning 80% of all those items. Like literally burning them. We were going to give them away, but when you're a start of a company, reputation is key. If we gave them away and people were wearing them who weren't our style or whatever, then people would look at it and go, oh, that's a gross brand. Anyway, that's just how business works. So we ended up burning about, let's say, $110,000 worth of items, which, mind you, sorry, that's not including the time and packaging and shipping and everything else, but we burned a fuckload of money. Let's just say $110,000 we literally burnt, which also cost us money to get a company called ShredX to come and pick that stuff up and burn it for us. They give us the certified to say that it's burnt and it can't get sold elsewhere. So yeah, we burned that. But when you burn stuff and when it's a business expense, that burnt money is now 100% claimable in tax. So you're not always at a loss. You're at a loss of your entire capital, but you can make some money back, which is going to be dead money anyway, which is tax. So that burnt money ended up becoming claimable tax. Over the time, then we still had a little bit of capital, but then it started to be more and more our own money from our own full-time jobs. We learned how to use Alibaba. We learned where to find factories. We started building up rapport with certain factories, started learning how to do our own tech packs. Pretty much everything this middleman was doing, we learned how to do 100% ourselves. All the creations, and I shit you not, ours was, when we did our own tech packs and everything, compared to theirs, I'll give you a little symbol from the both of them right here. That's ours, that's theirs. Ours was a lot more comprehensive. And what we figured out as well when it started to come with dealing with factories, because we go to China, all ethically made, all ethical factories we use. But the biggest issue is there's always going to be a language barrier. So where the factories are based, they only speak Mandarin. On Alibaba, it's like a consultancy website, I guess. So you speak to a consultancy place with English, but it's kind of broken English. So some of the words that we say in English don't exist in China. And then they go and talk to the people in Dongguan, where our factories are, in Mandarin. And then they also have like a number of factories that they personally use to get like pips, bags, but also with our bags, since they're biodegradable, you also got to find other factories. So you kind of get like a rapport with, I think at the moment we're using 4 different factories, not including bags and things like that. You just get a rapport with a whole heap of factories. You get samples sent from all those factories, and then you pick the best of the best if that's how you want to run it. That's how we do it anyway. So we ended up, again, you should learn it your fucking self, take the time. This money right here is now burnt, and we only have $140,000 left. Also, reading all the marketing and things that we went through to begin with, we thought we could grow our company organically, which is not paying for ads, not getting influencers. We still don't do influencers. We've been burnt a little bit on that, but we're going to start eventually. We just want to grow it without to begin with, just so we have the backing, because that market's getting very clouded as well. It's getting harder to find influencers that are one with the brand and not just wanting free shit. So we try to do it organically in a saturated market like clothing. And I say it's saturated, but I don't mean it's saturated to a point where you can't do it, because the analogy I like to use is, if you want a loaf of bread, go down the bread aisle in Woolies or any supermarket that's around. There's like 40 different breads, and they always get sold. Or even now, like Gymshark started, they went up against Adidas and Nike and stuff to take over the activewear. Lululemon started, they're like one of the biggest companies in the world. Like, it's any market that you start now, unless you're being intuitive of where the future's going, is more than likely going to be saturated. And people aren't buying clothes as much as they're buying to be a part of that brand, or loving to be a part of that journey with that brand. So you've got to sell your brand more than just say, oh, I'm selling this product, but it's oversaturated, and we're getting off track. So now, since all of this is done, and I'm almost certain, but I don't want to say it, I'm almost certain we burnt more than this. So now that our initial capital is now down to 110,000 burnt, we still sold some of those items, which was our initial lot of sales, which is where that $7,000 came from. And then the joggers and stuff we still had sitting around for ages and ages, but just because they're actually pretty good quality, and we decided to sell them. So let's just say this pretty much is $140,000 almost was a complete waste of. By the way, that initial capital, we had $180,000 initially. That $280,000 is how much we've spent to date on the company. 4 years. First launch was in 2019, but we started a year prior. So that's spent to date. We had $180,000 in capital. So now that we've burnt 140 grand, pretty much, we've only got $40,000 left. And we went through that like crazy, because we wanted to, like, sampling for instance is about $80 to $120 USD. I bought 5 socks with sampling, which were $120 USD for 5 pairs of socks, and they weren't even good. But that's one of the expenses that was also tax claimable. So that 140 is pretty much all tax claimable. Whenever you claim anything on tax, if you're a company or a business, this is the way the Australian tax works. I don't know who's watching this or where you're from. You can claim all of this. If it's a 100% loss, you can claim it all against your tax from your full-time job, if that makes sense. If you're an owner. So, or a partner. So we're not company yet. Company has different tax again, but you can still claim everything. You just pay a lower tax. But we're still running in the red. So every year, I think we've saved from us paying tax for the last 3 years about $90,000. Total transparency, I earn about 130 grand a year. Marnie, my business partner, earns about 120 grand a year. So we'll be paying in Australia roughly $35,000 to $40,000 worth of tax. And we have claimed most of all our losses on this business to get our tax back, because tax is dead money and it only goes to the government. They then spend it on whatever they want. So if you're starting to make more money and whatever, you have to understand tax as a whole. And yes, there's accountants for it, but you should also have a basic understanding, just so you know what's happening with your money and you can throw out questions and everything like that. Anyway, so we've ended up, let's say we got an extra $90,000 back. which we don't. We just don't have to pay it to the government. So after that 40 grand and the tax coming back in, we started doing everything ourselves. That's where we're at now. We're still doing everything ourselves, but that was our first biggest ever mistake, was going with a middleman that sold us all this hype. Everything made it seem hard to do ourselves. I'm a boilermaker by trade. Had a company called First Line Engineering. Sold out of that. Blah blah blah. Marnie's I guess in layman's terms, a computer programmer for artificial intelligence. So she programs codes, whatever, to make products for multi-million-dollar companies. Boring shit. Nobody cares about it. Unless you're a nerd and you like computer stuff. It's actually super interesting and I love it, but it's just really hard. You got to be good at it. Anyway, back to this. So if you're ever going to do it, take the time, because this amount of money, that's over a year's wage for me. For us to learn Alibaba probably took us about 3 weeks. And then over time we got better and better and better, just because you use it every single damn day. But within 3 weeks we were getting samples from factories. 3 weeks, but we paid $140,000 to try and wipe that out because we didn't think we had time. And that's 3 weeks after our full-time jobs. So do not, unless you're big enough and have a lot of money to throw at it, do not ever, when you're starting, use a middleman, because you're going to waste a whole lot of money and it's going to dishearten you. It's easier to learn it yourself. The internet, you have whatever information you need right in front of you on your computer. So biggest mistake, number 1. Number 2 was trying to grow organically. Every company can grow organically in general. It's just going to take a lot of time. TikTok might speed things up organically because of their algorithm, because it pushes videos and you can get 1 million views and sell as much items as you can. So you could go down that route, but with social media becoming more and more, I guess, involved in our day-to-day life, almost taking over our day-to-day life, growing organically is getting harder and harder due to your content has to always be on that top level. Like, you can't, when we started, we were going out taking photos with our own shitty camera. Not even that one there. Oh, there might have been that one there. And the content was just subpar. We're going up against people who were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on marketing, and we're trying to do it ourselves. So you have to cut through the noise, be on the top of hashtags, be on top of the algorithms, understand all the algorithms, understand everything to do with anything, to just grow organically and slowly over time. Now, you still want to do all that. You still want to do the organic term of growing, but you want to do that and what the fuck was that? Blend it with marketing in general, whether that's influencer marketing, which is shown to be massive, but it's getting harder now because people are kind of like just cutting off influencers in general when it comes to unauthenticity. So if you're going to go with influencer marketing, again, we've been burnt so many times with it all. You have to find influencers that are really a part of your brand, like they want to be a part of your brand. They stand for what your brand stands for. Those are the influencers you need to get. You can't just go pay somebody some free gear now and they go, yeah, this is dope free gear. Yes, you'll get your items out more in front of everybody. Yes, if the items are cool enough, people will see that from that Instagrammer, which is or TikToker, which is what influencer marketing is. But again, it's becoming every man and their dog is becoming an influencer now. So unless you're really connected with that influencer, you just don't care. All my Homo sapien friends and hopefully aliens who are watching this, I have to cut this short because this video is way too long. Come here. This video is way too long as is, so that's going to be part 1 of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in business, and what I highly recommend if you have your own business, you don't do yourself. So remember to like and subscribe. We finally hit over 500 subscribers. We're halfway to my 5th of the way to the goal, which I want to get to 5,000 by the end of the year. We're at 500. So remember to subscribe, hit the notifications, give us a thumbs up. It helps push out the video to the page. I hope all these business owners become super successful, but just take these tips on board, because I wish I'd done it completely different the way that I've said to do it. But you live and you learn, you spend and you lose. And yeah, peace out, fam. Have a good week. I love y'all. Peace.